Lila Harper hated surprises. She liked plans, lists, and knowing what was coming next. Life was already unpredictable enough without unexpected interruptions. That Thursday afternoon, the rain fell steadily over the city, coating the streets with a reflective sheen that made the world feel both quiet and heavy at the same time. Lila's umbrella shook under the wind as she hurried toward her favorite cafe. The one place that felt safe, predictable, comforting. She clutched her tote bag, her mind racing through the tasks she still had to finish before the evening. Emails to answer, reports to send, calls to make. Everything had a place, and every step of her day had a schedule. That was how she liked it. The bell over the cafe door chimed as she rushed in, a mixture of relief and lingering frustration on her face. The warmth of the interior was immediate, the smell of coffee and baked bread soothing. She ordered her usual black coffee, no sugar, and turned toward a table by the window. Outside, the rain painted everything in streaks and reflections. And for a brief moment, Lila allowed herself to enjoy the calm. But life, she realized, didn't always follow plans. Sometimes it collided with them, literally as she reached the corner of the table. Carrying her coffee and a stack of papers she intended to review, someone stepped into her path from the side. She didn't notice him until it was too late. They collided. Her papers went flying in all directions, and the coffee wobbled dangerously in her hand. She gasped, stumbling back to catch herself, while the man immediately bent down to help her gather the scattered sheets. "Sorry, I didn't see you there," Lila said quickly, kneeling to pick up the papers, her voice slightly trembling from surprise. The man's hands were steady, gentle, warm. No, not a problem, just unexpected," he said softly, almost as if admitting something personal, not just apologizing. His tone was calm, kind, and carried a weight of sincerity that immediately drew her attention. She looked up, meeting his eyes, and froze. There was something familiar about him, though she couldn't quite place it. Something in his expression felt like it belonged to her past, yet his presence belonged to the present. I think I recognize you," she said, brushing raindrops from her coat while trying to steady her racing heart. He paused for a moment, as if considering how much to reveal. His lips curved into a small, almost wistful smile. "Maybe. It's possible we met years ago. Or maybe it's just one of those moments that feels like destiny," he replied, his voice quiet, thoughtful, almost careful. Lila felt a strange mixture of curiosity and unease. Her mind flashed back to college. Two faces she had once known and people she had almost remembered fully, but had let fade over time. Could he be someone from that long-ago life she had left behind? And if so, why now? Why here? Why? Like this, in the middle of a rainy Thursday with papers scattered across the wet sidewalk. The man straightened, brushing his coat and glancing down at her scattered belongings. "I hope I didn't ruin your afternoon," he said. There was no teasing, no mockery, just genuine concern. And yet the words had a strange effect on her, as if even a casual sentence could hold meaning she wasn't expecting. "It's okay," Lila replied, still kneeling. She gathered the last of her papers and stacked them unevenly. Her hands were shaking slightly, though she wasn't sure if it was from the fall, the cold, or the sudden rush of emotions she hadn't anticipated. "Really, no harm done. I just didn't expect this." He laughed softly, a sound that seemed to fill the empty space between them. "Neither did I," he admitted. He extended his hand, offering a gesture that felt both simple and intimate. "Lucas," he said. Her heart skipped. Lila took his hand, feeling the warmth of it, the firmness that suggested steadiness. "Lila," she said. The name slipped out quietly, almost as if it were a secret being spoken for the first time in years. And then recognition hit her, sharp and sudden. Lucas from college. The one who had been in her life, briefly but intensely, years ago. The memory of him had been tucked away, carefully folded in her mind. But here he was, real and present, standing in front of her as if the years hadn't mattered. The moment stretched. Both of them aware of the strange timing, the improbable reunion. Lila's mind raced with questions she didn't know how to voice. What had he been doing all these years? Why now? Was this coincidence or something more? She could feel the pull of something familiar and unspoken. Something that tugged at her chest and made the rain outside feel like a backdrop to a moment that had always been waiting to happen. Lucas noticed her hesitation. He smiled again, softer this time, a little tentative. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said. "It's just unexpected running into you like this." After all this time, Lila nodded, words failing her for a moment. She had always been practical, grounded, and careful with her emotions. But seeing him again, hearing his voice, recognizing the tone she remembered so clearly stirred something in her she hadn't felt in years. It was a mixture of nostalgia, longing, and curiosity. They moved to the cafe together, standing awkwardly for a moment as she set her papers on the nearest table. She noticed the details, the way he carried himself, the calmness in his movements, the way his eyes seemed to search hers, trying to find something in the present that connected to the past. "I can't believe it's really you," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I know," he replied, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "It feels strange, doesn't it? Like we've stepped into a memory and somehow ended up in the present at the same time." Lila couldn't answer immediately. She simply nodded, taking a deep breath and letting the moment sink in. She realized that life's surprises didn't always arrive in the way she feared. They sometimes came wrapped in familiarity, in faces she knew, in moments that seemed almost magical in their timing. The cafe was warm, the smell of coffee blending with the soft murmur of other patrons. Rain continued to fall outside, tapping on the windows, creating a rhythm that somehow matched the quickened beat of her heart. Lucas gestured toward the table near the window. "Shall we sit?" he asked. She agreed, sliding into the seat across from him. As they settled in, the small talk began awkward at first, then slowly more comfortable. They spoke about mundane things, the weather, the city, minor details of life. But beneath it, there was a quiet electricity, a connection that neither of them could ignore. The recognition, the history, and the unexpected timing all blended together, creating a fragile but undeniable bond. For Lila, the encounter was unsettling and exciting at the same time. She had been someone who controlled her life with precision, but this moment was uncontrollable. And she realized something important. Sometimes, the most meaningful moments were the ones she hadn't planned for, the ones that arrived unannounced, completely unexpected, as they continued to talk. A soft thought crept into her mind. This wasn't just a random meeting. It felt intentional, like life had waited years to bring them back together, to give them a chance to pick up where they had left off. And though she didn't yet understand the reasons, she knew one thing. Everything had changed in that single, rainy moment. The days following that rainy Thursday felt strange for Lila. Her routine, usually so predictable, seemed altered somehow, as if her world had shifted just slightly out of alignment. She found herself thinking about Lucas more often than she cared to admit. Every time her phone buzzed, she hoped it might be a message from him, though she had no reason to expect one. And yet there was a quiet anticipation she could not ignore. Then, one Monday morning, she saw him again. The cafe, her usual haven, had become a stage for their unexpected reunion. He was already there when she entered, seated by the window with a notebook open in front of him, a cup of coffee steaming gently beside it. He looked up as she approached, and his face brightened with that familiar smile. "Lila," he said, voice carrying just enough warmth to make her chest flutter. "Lucas," she replied, almost whispering. The name rolled off her tongue like a memory she had kept, tucked away, waiting for a moment just like this. She noticed immediately that he had changed. The boyish charm she remembered had grown into something steadier, more assured, yet there was the same spark in his eyes, the same gentle expression that had drawn her in years ago. He gestured to the seat opposite him. "Mind if I join you?" She shook her head, settling in with a nervous smile. The air between them was charged, but not awkwardly. There was comfort here, the kind that only comes from a connection, both old and new. Lucas's presence seemed to pull her focus away from the chaotic city outside, from deadlines and responsibilities into a quiet, unexpected bubble of intimacy. For the first few minutes, their conversation was casual. They spoke about work, about the city, about minor events that had shaped their weeks. But as the words flowed, the distance of years seemed to shrink. Lila felt herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in a long time. Lucas had the ability to make her feel seen, to listen without judgment, to make ordinary moments feel significant. "You've changed," she said, after a pause, trying to place the new layer of confidence she saw in him. "So have you," he replied immediately. And she felt the sincerity in his voice. "But some things stay the same, like your laugh, your way of noticing small details. You've always had that." The memory of their college days came rushing back, unbidden. Late-night conversations on the quad, shared coffees, walks under streetlights, and fleeting touches that had meant so much more than words could capture at the time. They had been young, uncertain, afraid of the intensity of what they felt. And now, here they were, older, with the same connection lingering. Waiting to be acknowledged, a silence fell for a moment, but it was comfortable, not strained. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving streets wet and shiny, reflecting the early sunlight. Lucas sipped his coffee, his eyes never leaving hers. "You know," he began, hesitating slightly, "I never really expected to see you again. After college life, it's pulled me in a different direction. But now that we've met, I can't imagine this being just a coincidence." Lila nodded, feeling a flutter of emotion she could not name. Her practical mind wanted to caution her, to remind her that life was messy and that emotions could be fragile. Heart, stubborn as ever, ignored the warnings. There was something undeniably right about this moment, this reconnection. "I think about those days sometimes," she admitted softly. "I wonder what might have happened if things had been different." Lucas's gaze softened. "I do too. But maybe this is a chance to explore what we didn't have the courage for back then." The suggestion was bold but gentle, and it made her pulse quicken. The tension between them wasn't about words or actions. It was about possibility, about rediscovery, about seeing each other with new eyes, yet recognizing the same souls beneath the years. They talked longer, diving into memories, laughing over shared stories, teasing each other about moments only they could remember. With each word, each glance, the familiarity grew, a quiet reminder that connections like this didn't vanish. They waited, sometimes for years, for the right moment to return. And then, as the conversation drifted toward the present, Lucas became quieter, more reflective. "I never forgot you, Lila," he said, almost in a whisper. "Even when life pulled us apart, even when I thought I had moved on, you stayed with me in ways I couldn't explain." Her breath caught. The intensity of his words, spoken without arrogance or pretense, resonated deeply. She realized how much she had missed this, how much she had buried the memories and feelings that still lingered. For a brief moment, they sat in silence, letting the weight of unspoken years settle between them. The cafe around them continued its quiet bustle, the background chatter and clinking of cups fading into insignificance. It felt as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them, suspended in a space that was theirs alone. Then Lucas smiled, lighter this time, the tension easing. "Life is strange, isn't it? We plan, we prepare, we think we know the path. And yet the most important moments come when we least expect them." Lila nodded, a soft smile playing at her lips. "I suppose that's what makes them real," she replied. The truth of it struck her. Life's unexpected moments often held the most meaning. They were fleeting, fragile, yet unforgettable. As they stood to leave, Lucas brushed a wet strand of hair from her face. Careful, deliberate, a touch that sent a shiver through her despite the warmth of the cafe. "Would you like to meet again?" he asked, casually, but with a weight she could feel. "Yes," she said before thinking, the word coming naturally, instinctively. She knew that their story wasn't finished, that this was just the beginning of something that had waited for the right moment to return. They stepped outside together into the lingering drizzle, walking slowly side by side. The city moved around them, unaware of the quiet reconnection happening on the wet sidewalks. Every glance, every shared smile, hinted at the possibilities ahead and spoken, uncertain, but full of potential. As they paused near a street lamp, Lucas looked at her seriously. "I can't promise the future, Lila. Life's unpredictable. But I can promise that I want to explore it with you." Her heart ached with longing, joy, and anticipation all at once. "I think I'd like that," she said softly, her hand brushing his briefly. The contact was fleeting, yet it carried the weight of everything unspoken, and in that moment, Lila realized that some surprises, no matter how unexpected, were worth embracing. They had a chance to rewrite what had been left unfinished, to rediscover what had been lost, and to face the unknown together. As they parted that morning, promising to meet again, Lila felt a thrill she hadn't felt in years. It was the beginning of something uncertain, fragile, but undeniably alive. And she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The unexpected meeting with Lucas was not an interruption, it was the start of a story that neither of them had expected, but both had been waiting for, quietly, all along. The weeks after their unexpected reunion moved quickly, almost too quickly for Lila to keep up with. Every meeting with Lucas felt like stepping into a dream she hadn't realized she'd been waiting for. They met at the cafe more often now, and sometimes just for a walk in the city parks, where the golden light of late afternoons made the world feel intimate and quiet. They talked about everything and nothing, about small daily routines and big unspoken questions. Each conversation carried a weight she could feel in her chest, a mixture of joy, nostalgia, and something uncharted. Lila noticed the little things about Lucas that had changed and stayed the same. He was calmer now, steadier, more grounded, but the warmth in his eyes remained, the spark of curiosity and gentle humor that had drawn her to him years ago. He listened in a way that made her feel understood, that made her past, her mistakes, and her regrets feel accepted rather than judged. It was a kind of closeness she hadn't allowed herself in a long time, and it both thrilled and scared her. One afternoon, as autumn began painting the streets with orange and gold, they walked together along the river. Leaves swirled around. Their feet and the air carried the faint scent of rain from the night before. Lila had been quiet for a while, her mind tangled with memories and possibilities. Lucas noticed immediately. "You're thinking," he said softly, his voice calm and observant. "I am," she admitted. "About everything. About us. About back then. About why life pulled us apart. It's hard not to wonder why things happened the way they did." Lucas stopped walking and turned to face her. The sunlight caught the edges of his hair, and for a moment he looked almost untouchable, like a figure from a memory she had been holding on to. "I've thought about that too," he said. "More than I care to admit. I didn't disappear because I didn't care. I disappeared because I thought I had no choice. It's my life. It demanded things I couldn't ignore back then. I thought I was protecting you, but maybe I was just running away." The words struck her like a wave. She felt a mixture of hurt, confusion, and understanding all at once. Here was the man she had longed for, explaining the absence that had haunted her quietly for years. It was hard to reconcile the joy of being with him again with the reality of the past. You really left without saying anything?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "After everything, you just vanished." "I know," he said, his eyes filled with regret. "And I've regretted it every day. But standing here now with you, I see that maybe some things are meant to be found again, not lost forever." Lila's chest tightened. His honesty, his vulnerability, the way he admitted his mistakes without excuses was overwhelming. And yet it was exactly what she had needed to hear. For years, she had carried a quiet ache, a question that lingered at the edge of her thoughts. Now it was being addressed gently, openly. They continued walking side by side. But the silence between them was different now. It was filled with understanding, with the weight of what had been lost and the fragile hope of what could be reclaimed. Every brush of his sleeve against hers, every glance shared, spoke more than words ever could. Later, they found themselves on a quiet bench overlooking the river, the water reflecting the warm colors of the setting sun. Lucas leaned back, his expression thoughtful, and Lila sat beside him, hesitant but willing to bridge the distance that had grown between them years ago. "I kept thinking about what we had," he said quietly, almost to himself, "and how I should have fought to keep it. I thought I was doing the right thing by leaving. Okay. But maybe I just didn't know how to stay." Lila reached out, lightly touching his hand. The gesture was simple, but it carried a depth of emotion neither had expressed yet. "We were young," she said softly. "We didn't know how to handle everything. And maybe that's why life gave us another chance now." Lucas's fingers curled around hers. "A second chance," he echoed. "I don't want to waste it. I don't want to run away from us again." Her heart fluttered, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. The city noise, the rush of responsibilities, the lingering questions of the past. It was just them together, reconnecting in a way that felt inevitable, yet fragile. She realized how much she had missed him, how much she had longed for this kind of closeness. The kind that was built not on excitement alone, but on understanding, on patience, on the kind of love that grows quietly and deeply. But even as the warmth of reconnection wrapped around her, a shadow lingered. Lila could feel that there were still things unsaid, unspoken truths in Lucas's life that might shape the future of their relationship. She wanted to ask, to know, but she feared that asking too soon might shatter the fragile moment they were sharing. So she stayed silent, letting the moment linger, letting him decide what to reveal in his own time. Days turned into weeks, and each meeting deepened their bond. They explored the city together, sharing meals, laughter, and quiet moments where words weren't necessary. Every shared glance, every smile, carried the history of the past and the promise of the future. Lila began to notice patterns, small habits in Lucas that reminded her of the man she had once known. Yet now stronger, wiser, more complete. Yet with the growing closeness, there was also tension. Every time Lucas seemed about to share a deeper part of himself, he hesitated. Lila sensed it the way he held back, the way his eyes flickered with thoughts unspoken. She understood that he carried burdens, secrets that had kept him distant in the past. And though she longed to know, she realized that some things required patience. Some truths needed to be discovered in their own time, in their own way. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the city lights began to twinkle, Lila finally voiced what had been on her mind. "Lucas, there's something I need to ask. Something I've been holding back." He turned to her, concern in his eyes. "Anything," he said. "You can ask me anything. Why did you really disappear after college?" She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas looked away, swallowing hard. He ran a hand through his hair as if gathering courage. "I had responsibilities," he said slowly. "Family, work, things I couldn't ignore. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. But I see now that I was wrong. I should have stayed, I should have fought for us instead of leaving." Her chest tightened. But instead of anger or resentment, she felt something else, understanding, forgiveness, and an unexpected warmth that made her heart ache. The man she had remembered had returned, but now he was someone more complete. Someone willing to face the truth and admit mistakes. "I forgive you," she said softly, surprising even herself. I've been waiting for this conversation for years." Lucas's hand closed over hers, firm and reassuring. "I won't make the same mistake again," he promised. "I want to be here fully with you." The moment was quiet, intimate, yet full of power. They sat together, letting the city hum around them, the air thick with the possibilities of what lay ahead. Lila realized that love, real love, often required patience, understanding, and the willingness to confront difficult truths. And now, after weeks of rediscovery, she felt ready to explore what they could have together. Cautiously, but wholeheartedly. As they walked back toward the cafe where it had all begun, Lila felt a sense of anticipation, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The past had been complicated, the present delicate. But the future uncertain, fragile, and full of potential felt worth embracing. She knew there were more secrets to uncover, more stories to share, but for the first time in years, she felt that connection, that spark, and the quiet hope that life had given them a second chance for a reason. And in that moment, Lila understood something she hadn't allowed herself to admit before. Sometimes, the heart finds its way back to what it has always wanted, even when the path is long, winding, and filled with obstacles. And sometimes, the rediscovery of love is the most unexpected journey of all. The weeks following their heart-to-heart along the river carried a quiet intensity for Lila and Lucas. Their connection, once dormant and fragile, had grown steadily into something both comforting and thrilling. Every meeting was a mixture of laughter, shared memories, and subtle touches that lingered just long enough to remind them that the bond between them was real and powerful. Lila had begun to notice a change in herself, too. She felt lighter, more willing to embrace the unpredictable, to allow herself to be swept along by life's surprises. One Saturday afternoon, they met at the little bookstore they had discovered together. Rain had returned to the city, drumming softly against the windows. Lila moved among the shelves, her fingers brushing over the spines of books as Lucas watched her, his expression unreadable at first, then softening with warmth. "You'll always find the most interesting places," he said, smiling. "And you always follow me?" she teased, though there was a tender note in her voice. She could feel his gaze on her, steady and sincere. It wasn't the kind of attention that made her uncomfortable. It was the kind that made her feel seen, appreciated, understood. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the need to guard herself. They wandered through the aisles, talking about favorite books, childhood memories, small moments that had shaped them. Each story they shared added another layer to their renewed connection. Yet, beneath the light conversation, a quiet tension lingered. Both of them knew the past had been complicated, and that Lucas still carried some of its weight. But rather than letting that distance them, it drew them closer, creating a sense of intimacy that felt earned rather than given. After leaving the bookstore, they walked along the wet streets, umbrellas held high, the rain falling in soft sheets around them. Lucas reached for her hand instinctively, and she didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, the gesture unspoken but meaningful. "I feel like we're making up for lost time," he said, his voice quiet yet certain. "Maybe we are," she replied, "but it feels right. Somehow it feels like this is where we were always meant to be, even if it took years to get here." Lucas nodded, a gentle smile tugging at his lips. "I never want to let this go again," he admitted. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything they had been through, years of separation, the lingering ache of loss, and the fragile hope of a second chance. Lila felt her heart swell with emotion. She had spent so long guarding herself, so long doubting whether moments like this were possible. And yet here they were, standing together in the rain, sharing a quiet certainty that neither could deny. As the afternoon faded into evening, they stopped near the riverside, where the city lights reflected on the water in 1,000 tiny points of color. Lucas turned to her, his expression serious, and Lila felt a familiar flutter of anticipation. "There's something I've been meaning to say," he began. "I know life hasn't been simple. I know the past wasn't easy, but I want you to know I'm here now, fully, and I'm not leaving. I don't want to let distance, time, or mistakes take us apart again." Her chest tightened at the earnestness in his voice. She had feared that the man she had longed for might still carry shadows from the past. But hearing him speak so openly and vulnerably erased much of that fear. "I feel the same way," she said softly, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside her. "I've been afraid of getting hurt, afraid of losing you again, but I trust that we can face the future together." They walked along the riverside in silence, their hands still intertwined, letting the sounds of the city and the rhythm of the river fill the space between them. Every step felt meaningful, as if they were moving not just through the streets, but through time itself, bridging the years they had spent apart and the possibilities that awaited them as the night deepened. They found themselves near a small park. Lucas stopped, turning to face her with an intensity that made her heart race. "I want to be part of your life, Lila," he said. "Not just the easy days, but the hard ones too. I want to be there for everything, if you'll let me." Her throat tightened, and for a moment, she struggled to find words. The vulnerability in his gaze mirrored the vulnerability she felt in her own heart. Finally, she whispered, "I want that too. I've wanted it for a long time, even when I didn't know it was possible." They stood there for a moment, letting the rain wash over them, the world around them fading, until it was just the two of them, connected by shared history, shared longing, and the quiet hope of what lay ahead. Lila realized that love wasn't just about excitement or passion, was about understanding, forgiveness, patience, and the willingness to face uncertainty together. And in Lucas, she had found all of that, and more. As they began walking back toward the streets lined with glowing lampposts, Lila felt a sense of calm settle over her. The chaos and unpredictability of life hadn't vanished, but for the first time in years. She felt ready to embrace it not alone, but with someone she trusted, someone she cared for deeply. Over the following days, their connection deepened further. They shared quiet breakfasts, long walks, and conversations that stretched into the night. They discovered more about each other, about the lives they had led apart and the dreams they still held. Each revelation, each shared memory drew them closer, creating a bond that felt both familiar and new. Lila began to notice how much she had grown, how much her heart had healed since those early days of longing and uncertainty. And she saw the same growth in Lucas Amen, who had once disappeared from her life. Now fully present, fully himself, ready to embrace what they had been given. One evening, as they sat together on her balcony overlooking the city lights, Lucas turned to her with a gentle expression. "I know we can't predict what comes next," he said. "Life will always have surprises, unexpected turns, and challenges.